you both are associated with certain dynasties, West Coast, East Coast. I'm curious, how did each other's movement influence you? For example, how did the whole N.W.A, Dre, West Coast movement, influence early Roc-A-Fella stuff, and vice versa? How did the stuff that they were doing in New York with that influence kind of like the West Coast sound?
Hearing N.W.A for the first time was my very first time being introduced to gang life on the West. It was very much a communication tool to let other people know what was going on. We had no idea. And this is even before you get your Boys in the Hood movies. This is before you get all the movies that sort of explained everything or showed you even parts of that life. It came through the music. So it was like, what is this? Because on the East Coast, we had gangs, but it wasn't something that was as deep as, okay, this is not just 10 kids getting together and saying, I'm gonna be a crew. So yes, we had the Black Spades and we had all these classic organizations. But it wasn't something based off of like, look, the Crips started because of this, the Blood started because of this, because we was actually getting chased by the spook hunters, and we didn't have that whole history. The music is what introduced us to understand why all of that was going on. So then when you hear the N.W.As and you hear Eazy-E and you hear like later what Dr. Dre did, it just introduced us to a whole lifestyle. So it's like now you getting all this funk, because it was different funk than what EPMD was doing. EPMD was sort of our funk dudes, but it was like an East Coast sort of funk because of the territory and because of the way that the city is structured. You know what I mean? So on the East, it wasn't necessarily like a big driving culture. You walk a lot of places, or you take the train, or you drive your car and you park, then you walk for the rest of your day. But out West, it was like constantly being in your car. So the music reflects that. The bass lines are longer and drawn out instead of being these quick like DJ Premier stabs. It was long, and then a lot of people were playing the bass lines and playing music where it's like, yo, Too Short was playing his joints. Like that was crazy to us. So the sound of the music really introduced you to a whole culture, and I really found out about gang life, not just gang life, but just West Coast life in general through the music. So that was the influence, and then that was when I was young. In my era of actually making music, it was like the selling of the music was like, yo, our biggest artists are only selling like 1 million copies. Like Dog Pound is coming out selling 2 million albums. Like they have way more people that enjoy their music than us. You know what I'm saying? So it was sort of like this thing where it's like, yo, here's the race to understand why more people enjoy this than enjoy my music. So you try to open up your palette of what you make so that more people can enjoy music. This is why you get a Big Papa on a Biggie album. You know what I mean? Because it's like looking at what Snoop and Dre is doing and going, yo, this is dominating music. We got to put some of that in our music.
Being on the West Coast and listening to Roc-A-Fella and watching that whole movement, like literally start and evolve, was like, especially from a producer standpoint, because I like. For a producer to see like Just Blaze, Kanye, all these incredible producers come out of one movement, even Pharrell, you know what I'm saying, like, is the most incredible thing. Like when I go back and watch like some of the YouTube clips and we watch like the documentary like on the Black album, and I watched that, I'm like, man, I wish I could have lived that. You know what I'm saying? When Kanye's in there playing beats and you only hear the stories, you know what I'm saying? And the Ninth Wonder story is the craziest story. Like I remember hearing that about Ninth, because I'm a big Ninth Wonder fan, and at that time, we knew Little Brother, and we all came from the underground. And when he got that look, I was like, I didn't even know that was possible. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that he got to live that out, and that is a part of, history. That's a part of hip hop history. Roc-A-Fella kind of like divided the time between like now and like just before, to me, in my opinion. Dope. Just what Jay-Z, what came out of that. You know what I mean? All the different stars that came out of that. You know what I mean? You're a legend. You know what I mean? Because of that. It, for real, man. It's so
that was a fun time, and you don't realize it's like somebody taping your college, experience or whatever. It was just a really fun time. The only reason we really did that is because it was like at that time no one had ever seen any of the working of it. You know what I'm saying? And it was supposed to be like Jay's last album, so it's like, all right, let's document it. The actual making of the record, and just so much dope stuff came out of that. But I don't know, it was just one of those super fun times. And then the Ninth thing was incredible, just from the simple fact that I admired Ninth. I hate when people just be like, yo, I didn't put Ninth on.
Right.
I was someone who heard incredibly dope music, and I said, yo, you should play this for Jay. You know what I'm saying? And it worked out, and it was great. And Ninth has become like one of my best friends. But one of the super special things with me during that whole time was that was the first time I ever sat in a studio and from scratch made music with Quik.
That's crazy.
And I didn't know Quik knew so much about production and engineering and all stuff. So it was like,
genius.
Yeah, imagine Quik coming, and we probably worked for a good 4 or 5 days. You know, Jay ended up picking whatever beat that he picked, but Quik made so many beats in that week, and it was like to see him work and to see him go, yo, Goo, make me a sound. You know, like no East Coast producers, we like, yo, Goo, make me a sound. You know, I'm sitting there, you know, because you learn all this stuff about keyboards, and I'm like, oh, word? Okay, cool. And you know what I'm saying? He had the 8,000 out, and I'm like, yo, just sitting there making sounds. And it was a fun time, man, to see Quik actually like do the drum pattern, walk over to the SSL, EQ the hell out of it, come back, add stuff on top of it. He had his guitar player there, and I swear to you, the way he plugged it in through the Avalon and distorted everything and EQ'd everything and made it sound like it was coming out of an amp. And I'm like, yo, this dude is incredible.
He's a mad scientist, dude. Quik is a mad scientist.
Incredible.
I mean, he's up there with Dre. There's Dre, Battle Cat, and DJ Quik. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they are literally like scientists, like literally know everything about analog gear, SSL to compressors to. Because the first time I saw Quik, he had like a rack that he brings to his sessions, literally, of just compressors, preamps, everything. And he had an SP12, MP, and he was like running everything through that. Like he had his whole thing worked out, but he could actually open up an SSL and fix it.
Right.
He's insane, dude. It's insane. And just the fact that Jay-Z went and got DJ Quik for that record. Because that actually gets overlooked.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's the one record that gets overlooked because there's so many classic records on there. But then you're like, damn, he did get DJ Quik on.
Nah, he made a list.
That's insane.
Made a list and was like, he handpicked all of those people. We get spoiled, or I get spoiled a little bit because it's like, I have my guys just like you do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So at some point I was like, I gotta work with Pete. You know what I'm saying? So I worked with Pete. At some point you like, I gotta sit and watch Premier make a beat. You know, I did that. Even to the degree that I bugged somebody like I gotta sit down with Jay, you know, with Dilla when he first came out, and I'm like, I only had one session with him, but it was like I bugged him to death to be like, yo, I gotta sit and watch this dude work. But it's like I didn't get that opportunity with a lot of the West Coast cats, so that was like my one dream opportunity for like a good 4 days and intense working with DJ Quik was incredible.
That's so crazy.
You talked a little bit about Dilla. Can you talk about what that one session was like?
Man, it was okay. When producers come out, a lot of times what you'll find out is it's like it's not really that dude, or it's not that dude by himself, right? It's like him and his homeboy, but the homeboy doesn't really get the credit, or it's like he's in the basement with a couple other dudes. So my thing at that point was like I always used to want to get in a session with somebody to see if it was real. Right, my assistant, who's no longer with me, Khalil, used to live on Church Ave in Brooklyn. And instead of going all the way back to Jersey, these sessions that we used to do would be like, yo, you got an hour to leave, go shower, come back and start the next session. So I would run to his crib in Brooklyn, go take a shower, get on a train and come back. His roommate, Johnny, was like a super hip hop head. This was the guy that if you missed Bobbito's show, he taped it. You know, you could call him and be like, yo, what did Bobbito play last night? Long story short, he had the Slum Village 1 tape. And he's just playing it in the crib as I'm taking a shower, and I'm like, what is that? You know, you get that shock when you first hear Dilla, because it's like, it got the bounce to it, but it's something different about it. It's like Tribe, but like better. No disrespect, but like, it just had the bounce to it. So I'm like, yo, who is this dude? I came out here, and I was in Amoeba, and then I found Two, the one that they actually put out as a CD. And then after that, I was just like, yo, I gotta meet this dude. I was bugging my man for over and over and over. I was like, anytime he comes to New York, I'll do the session for free. I just want to sit in with him. And it was just one of them pure days. It was no other artist. It was me, Dilla, a bunch of weed, an MPC 3000, and he just sat there and made a bunch of beats for the day. And I'm watching, and now I'm getting it. And I'm like, okay, he's like taking the kick, the hi-hat, and an open hi-hat, and that's like on one pad. Then he goes to the snare, and it's like snare, hi-hat, something else. Like it's not just like kick, hi-hat,
Yeah,
snare. Like, he was just combining music in a way that I was like, yo, this dude is incredible. Even to this day, man, like, I know the records that he sampled,
right,
and I still can't reconstruct the beat.
No, you can't.
Like, Pete's thing was, Pete was incredible because he could take 5 records, right?
Yeah.
And they all be in key, and they all be like layered. You like, how did he even do that, right? Primo's genius was taking the littlest, smallest chop and making something out. When you find the sample for Can't Stop the Prophet, you're like, wow, he listened to the whole, because it's like right at the end.
Right.
And you're like, it's just, right.
Right.
And it's like, yo, he made a whole incredible beat out of that. With Dilla, it was like, this dude is like, I always say this, he's like Michael Jordan, because he took the styles of everyone and put them all together, but like, he could do everyone's style, but everybody can't do his style.
That's true.
So he has the West Coast funk. He has the East Coast hop. He has that Midwest swing.
Right.
He has all of it, and his thing about not quantizing would always give the drums his personal little offness, where it's like, it's that last minute. It's like when the elevator's closing and you just jump in for the snare to be on time, but it's like really late. Like, that thing has so many producers now making loose beats where it's like really your feel.
I'm one of them.
Man, Dilla was like, that session was, I knew at that moment, like, I already knew what he was when I stepped into that session. That's why I wanted that session so bad. It's the only time I ever, like, one-on-one had conversation and worked with him.
Yeah.
And then the only time I ever touched any of his music was when I did the De La Soul Grind Date album.
Oh, right.
That's the only time I ever mixed any, Dilla stuff or whatever.
Crazy.
Man, he's, whew.
So you mixed that whole album?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you did Roc-A-Fella for everything?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
You killed that. That's a classic.
Thank you, brother.
Classic.
Nah, that was a fun session. Fun times. It's like, you really get to see why they are,
they're the most consistent group next to Outkast to me.
Yeah.
Of ever, like, period. You know what I mean? And to see the evolution of every album, you know what I mean? The first 2 albums to me are just classics. You can't really, they're kind of set the tone for, you know what I mean? Like, making an album with interludes and all that stuff.
The thing I will say about them, and especially Paz, is that they took the idea of if you're coming at that time, right, and Public Enemy has this thing with the Bomb Squad where there's just all these sounds just flying in and out, right? There's a million samples in there, but a lot of it is chaos.
Yeah.
For a purpose, though. Public Enemy's purpose was like chaos, to bring across a message like confusion. Here come the drums.
Right.
That was the purpose. De La took that, throw everything in, but it's so scientifically done that every single thing adds to the record.
Yeah.
When you listen to like 3 is the magic number,
right.
it's like weird stuff coming in, but it all adds to this 3 concept. Right. And it's like, did you find the little quirky records first and then made that? Or did you just luck up and find some record that is so scientific with them dudes, man? And especially Paz. Like, Paz is like, to sit in the studio with him and to see how specific he was on all the mixes and go, I need this like this, and like, he was there with me every day designing that record.
That's why they're so consistent, man. I mean, because like, even with De La Soul's Dead or 3 Feet High and Rising, I still don't really understand how I don't think I ever want to even know how those records were made, because it's just so magic. Like, I like the mystery of it. Right. I like not knowing what they did.
I actually sat and tried to recreate 3 Feet High and Rising, and it's almost impossible. And I was just like, yo, how did they even think of it? So it has to be like just this lucky potluck thing. And again, too, you don't take away the magic of Prince Paul. You know what I'm saying? During those times. But man, like, those albums are like my bread and butter of what I used to listen to.
You can go back to that anytime, and it's instant. Like, if you're about to do an album, you should definitely listen to those 2 albums, really.